nurse, you know some patients are easier to take care of than others, and each one will have a special spot in your memory and some more than others. Well, the story is told of one particular young nurse who was working in a long-term care facility. And as is the case, many of the nurses had their favorites and the ones they did not like to go in and help. Well, there was one particular patient. She was foul, she was rude, and the room was horrible because she was going through some serious intestinal cancer. The medication combined with C. diff made the room unbearable. Anybody who was going to go in and work with her absolutely had to put on a mask. Sometimes they would do the nursing trip and put a little essential oil underneath their nose, whether that was an orange or a citrus or anything, to get rid of that smell. And they also would go in and out as fast as they could. There was no therapeutic touch or conversation because it was just self-survival to get out of that room. Well, this one new young nurse said, once she figured out what was the situation, challenged herself and said, I'm going to make myself like this patient. And she did. So she began to really work up a desensitization so she could spend a little bit longer in that room. So most everybody else would go in and just do the necessities and get out of there. She forced herself to start asking questions. Well, of course, the first thing is the nurse or the patient was angry and upset and cynical and suspicious. But as this nurse continued to do it, the patient began to soften a little bit and then slowly began to actually share stories of her own life and her grandchildren and family and things that have brought her into that position of being in that long-term care facility where she was at that time. And slowly, the nurse also began to feel endeared. Her other staff would say, how in the world can you stand to be in there? And it became from one of the absolute truths of the universe, which is those who we serve, we really love. And she began to feel that, the swelling in her own heart, because she would force herself to serve this patient beyond just the mechanics. Well, of course, eventually that patient did finally pass. And the nurse was surprised to find herself missing her and missing, ironically, the smells of that room that would bring her back to the memory of this very oddball friendship that developed. Well, you nurses are like that as well, because you create these relationships with your patients that never would have put people together, and yet you do. And that's part of the art of nursing. Thank you for being a nurse, especially during this worldwide pandemic of COVID. And it's putting people in your path that you never would have thought. And yet now you're together. Enjoy that opportunity and the privilege to touch another's soul while you serve them. And you will feel your heart enlarge and enrich as well. Remember, you are on the errand of angels. That's what nurses are doing. Well, thank you and happy healing.